Hey y'all, and welcome to another episode of The Crazy Short Hairy Dude. I am your host, The Crazy Short Hairy Dude. And as you can probably guess, we are talking about Batman today. Yes, the Caped Crusader, the Dark Knight, the Batman. The character was created. Let me turn that down a little bit. The character was created by artist Bob Kane and writer Bill Finger. That's still a little too loud. And writer Bill Finger for issue 27 of Detective Comics, which came out on March 30th, 1939. Now, some of the inspiration behind Batman, behind the character, were characters like Zorro, uh, which if you've never heard of Zorro, look him up, especially the movies with Antonio Banderas. Really, really good. And there's a great old black and white show on Disney Plus. Excellent. Um, and there was also the popular fictional crime fighter on who had his own radio show, and then later on comics, known as the Shadow. Both both Zorro and the Shadow were uh, rich young men who decided to fight crime at night, using their wealth and position in order to do so. Um, and at some later point, we'll probably do an episode on Zorro and the Shadow each. But Batman's been around for nearly 90 years at this point, and the name Batman is pretty much known everywhere in the world by everyone. He is one of the most well-known and popular characters. The top three characters that are most well-known to the world are Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. So, yeah, he's in the top three. If you've never read one of the comics, played any of the video games, watched any of the movies, or any of the television series, then yeah, we'll talk about those. But you've probably at least heard the name Batman. So, Batman is the alter ego for Bruce Wayne, an extremely wealthy American playboy philanthropist and industrialist who lives in the fictional city of Gotham, uh, Gotham City, which is partly based off of, which Gotham was partially based off of uh, cities like New York and Chicago, especially in the 30s when gang violence, mafia violence was big. Now, his origin story tends to start when he's about 10 years old. Uh, he and his parents are leaving the theater. In most iterations, they're leaving a movie theater after just watching um, an old Zorro movie. So a little tie in there. Um, and they decide to take a shortcut through an alley. A mugger comes out of the shadows and demands their wallet, their money and their jewelry. And in the struggle, um, the killer's gun goes off. 2 shots are fired, and they kill. Those shots kill Bruce's parents right in front of him, Thomas and Martha. And so Bruce is understandably traumatized by this event. He just watched his parents murdered in front of his eyes, and Bruce swears vengeance against the criminals in his city, and he also promises to make sure that these events won't happen to anybody else. Um, and and so to do so, as he grows up, he learns everything that he can about criminology and detective work and martial arts and chemistry and really anything he can find to help him on this crusade. He perfects himself in every way that he can, all with the help of the family's loyal butler, Alfred Pennyworth, who basically raises Bruce from 10 years old on. Bruce travels around the world to study all these different things and ancient arts. He studies with magicians for learning how to do like escape artistry type stuff, like Houdini did, chemistry and criminology, and also he can become the world's greatest detective. He then goes back to Gotham and and decides to fight crime. At first, he didn't have the idea of Batman, but trying to find a way to strike fear into the hearts of criminals. In most of the comics, uh, Batman, well, Bruce is sitting at home when a bat flies through one of the windows, breaking glass in this huge dramatic fashion, and he gets the idea, the symbol of the bat, so he becomes Batman. So throughout his crusade on crime, Batman fights a wide range of criminals, from simple muggers to mafia bosses to psychotic killers. And for his rogues gallery, I say besides Spider-Man, I can't think of really any other comic book character or superhero who has a greater roster of villains that they fight on a regular basis. Batman has numerous ones, but the biggest ones are probably the Riddler, Penguin, Two-Face, Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, Catwoman, Scarecrow, Clayface, Ra's al Ghul. Yes, I say Ra's al Ghul and not Ra's al Ghul. Uh, Bane, Harley Quinn, and the Joker. The Joker is probably Batman's greatest enemy. He's definitely probably the most popular of all Batman's villains, and he's the craziest, the most psychotic, the most disturbed. But my personal favorite villain is probably Mr. Freeze. Now, Freeze is a scientist named Victor Fries, spelled Friese, I believe, who was experimenting with, well, he was a cryogenics expert, and he was trying to um, find a cure for his wife. She had an incurable disease, and so he froze her. He put her in cryogenics hibernation uh, in order to keep her alive long enough for him to find the cure. Well, after he did that, there was an accident in the lab, and there's some different variations on how that happened, but he was exposed to the sub-zero liquid of the cryogenic stuff, whatever it was. Could have been liquid nitrogen or whatever. But it had a chemical. It changed his whole body, and so and he mutated, and so now he can only survive in sub-zero temperatures. And he built this suit in order to survive, and he uses a freezing gun uh, in his crimes. But usually his crimes revolve around stealing money or equipment that he needs in order to try to save his wife. And so, in many instances, Batman does stop him, um, but he also provides Freeze with the resources that he needs to continue his research, just at Arkham Asylum or in prison. Uh, so while Freeze's actions are wrong, I mean they're definitely wrong. He's killing people and he's stealing things. His motivations behind it are noble. It's just his methods flawed. So he's a very sympathetic villain, and so that's probably why he's my favorite. He has a very tragic background and he has noble intentions. It's just his method is flawed, very, very flawed. Now, if you're new to comics in general, or just new to Batman comics, and want to know which ones to read, I mean, you really can't go wrong with any of them. Uh, but there's been numerous stories told over and over and over again in various iterations. So I'll just kind of list some of my favorites. They're good places to start. So If you want a good kind of origin story, you can't go wrong with Batman Year One. Uh, Year One was by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli, and this one kind of revived. It was part of the revitalization of DC and comics in general, and Batman specifically. This one came out after another one that I'll mention later, The Dark Knight Returns, also by Frank Miller. But this one, we see Batman, Bruce Wayne, return to a Gotham City that is very corrupt, and so it is corrupted in its politics, and the cops are even corrupted. But at the same time, we see a young Commissioner Gordon, who's not commissioner yet, Jim Gordon, who becomes one of Batman's greatest allies. We see him come into Gotham, and so Batman Year One is also Jim Gordon's Year One, and so this book tells a story of how they meet, how they start to learn how to trust each other, because Batman doesn't trust the cops, and the cops are always going after Batman because he's a vigilante. But then Jim Gordon starts to see that there's something different about this guy, and he's honestly trying to help. In fact, the movie Batman Begins was partially based off of this book, so I do recommend it. It's good. Another good one, if you want just kind of a one-off kind of story, which this one was really good. It's Batman Gotham by Gaslight. It puts Batman and some of the other characters into more of the late 1800s. So in the first part of the book, Batman is having to track down and fight Jack the Ripper. So very interesting story. I do recommend that one. Um, the Long Halloween, really awesome. It takes place early in Batman's career. This one was made by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, and I mean the artwork is unbelievable. It is just very different from your normal comics, and it's just really well done. It's a really good story. Batman's helping Jim Gordon and Harvey Dent track down and stop uh, a serial killer who's murdering people every holiday, and these people all have something to do with uh, the mob boss that they're trying to bring down at the same time. And so we see the fall of the organized crime that's been plaguing Gotham for years, and we see a rise in the more supervillain, psychotic ones like Joker, Poison Ivy, and all those guys. And we get to see how Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face. So, really good book, and this was partially the inspiration behind uh, The Dark Knight, the movie The Dark Knight. So, those are really good. Another really good one, got a couple more here. Batman Hush, very good story. Um, you get to see a little more between Batman and Catwoman and their relationship, how that develops. We see some traditional villains in this one, like Joker and Harley Quinn and all those. But you also see some kind of B-list characters start to come to the foreground, like the Riddler, and introduces a new villain, Hush. And so, yeah, it was really well done. Superman makes an appearance in this one too, and Batman has a really good line in there uh, where he says, "Deep down, Superman," referring to Superman, and it was, "Deep down, he's a good person, and deep down, I'm not." Very Batman there. Um, Last one I'm gonna talk about real quick is Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. This book here, oh man, this comic run, it redefined the whole Batman genre. I mean, for for years and years, Batman had been kind of campy, and comics were kind of more geared towards kids, and they were very colorful, and cheesy. But that was kind of their target audience. Well, in the '70s, that kind of started to change. Um, but then Frank Miller came along and did The Dark Knight Returns as his graphic novel here, and we see an older Batman who returns to uh, to crime fighting after being away for 10 years, after being retired for 10 years, and he's just sick and tired of the corruption and the crime that is plaguing his city. We see a little bit of Batman's kind of psychosis stuff here, where he just can't seem to let go of Batman. Um, and so it is darker, it is grittier. This is a Batman who is old, he is pissed off, and yeah, and we see a lot of really crazy things happen in this. It explores a lot of his origins, but it also just kind of it brought Batman to what was then the modern day, and and into kind of the world at the time. The artwork is really good. The story, like I said, is great. Um, this book was part of the inspiration behind Batman vs Superman, that movie. Um, Definitely a huge inspiration behind the way Ben Affleck's Batsuit looked for that movie. Um, so yeah, I do recommend that one too. Very well done. Now, in television, in the '60s, there was a live-action Batman series starring Adam West and Burt Ward. As Adam West was Batman and Burt Ward was Robin, Batman's loyal sidekick. And the series also had recurring characters, mostly villains, played by uh, like Cesar Romero, who played the Joker, who famously refused to shave his mustache, so they had to put like heavy paint over the mustache, which you can still see. Frank Gorshin as the Riddler, who did an amazing job. Burgess Meredith as Penguin, and let's see, Catwoman, who was played by really, um, I think, three different people. Uh, Most notably was Julie Newmar and later Eartha Kitt. The series went on for 3 seasons before it was canceled, but the show it was geared towards a younger audience, and it was very campy and kind of cheesy in its portrayal of the characters, but that was kind of the point. And it really has become just a cult classic. I mean, everything about it, like even especially the Batmobile, that thing was awesome. No matter how good or bad the show was or any of the movies are, the Batmobile is always awesome. Yeah. Even in Batman and Robin, just that movie. Ugh. Yeah, movie's not great, but the Batmobile was awesome. Batman returned in an animated form um, on shows like Super Friends, but they didn't really get past the kind of campiness of the Adam West style of Batman until 1989 Batman movie with that Tim Burton made, starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. That changed the game. Um, the game had already changed for comics, and now it was time to change it for movies and TV. And so, inspired by the success of Batman, Warner Brothers decided they wanted to do another animated show, and that's actually the shirt I'm wearing. Batman the Animated Series, the best, absolutely the best Batman show ever. It is the goat. It is the greatest of all time. Uh, just the style of everything, especially in the first couple seasons, the style, the stories. I mean, they reinvented a lot of things, but at the same time, they really stuck true to the comics and that inspiration. Um, in a lot of fans' minds, and in my mind, it is the quintessential Batman story. It was darker by design. Even they drew all the art uh, for the animation on black paper, so it was automatically darker. It was grittier. It's still geared towards kids and family, but it told the story of Batman and the villains so well that many of the stories have become official canon for the characters, like Mr. Freeze's story that I mentioned earlier. That started with the animated series, not in the comics. That was awesome. It also introduced a new character to the Rogues Gallery, Harley Quinn, who kind of started off as just kind of a one-off character, but she became so popular and she was so well done that they put her in the comics, and now even she's one of the main villains. The show starred the late great Kevin Conroy as Batman, and he gave such an amazing performance that he became the voice for Batman for a whole generation of people. Uh, he did such a great job of it and did it for so many movies and TV series and video games that whenever I read comics, it's his voice that I hear in my head. As I'm reading the comics, it's his voice. Other actors have done a great job with the character, but Kevin Conroy will always be Batman for me. Same thing goes with Mark Hamill as the Joker. Yes, Mark Hamill, star of Star Wars, the original trilogy, Luke Skywalker himself. He did the voice of the Joker and did such a phenomenal job that he too is the voice that I hear when I read the comics and Joker's in it. They are by far the best versions of those characters. Other notable shows included the kind of the sequel series Batman Beyond, which saw the same characters just decades later, with a younger Batman being mentored by old Bruce Wayne. Then we had shows like Justice League Unlimited. Uh, then there was a animated series, The Batman, which was really good. Uh, and I think one of the latest ones, at least most notable ones, was the show Gotham. In film, there have been several, well, countless ones over the years. Um, from the Batman movie serials in the 1940s to the most recent film, The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson as a younger Caped Crusader. And all of them have their merits, but some are definitely better than others. So here's kind of my ranking for the live action Batman movies. Uh, I First and foremost, live action, it's going to be the Dark Knight trilogy. Yeah, the Dark Knight trilogy is the best live action iteration of Batman that we have seen. I know a lot of fans are going to say, no, Michael Keaton is the best. And he is right on up there for me. But I got to give it to Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan and the whole Dark Knight trilogy. It was awesome. So that's Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. Fantastic. Then I would rank it with Batman Returns, which I thought was better than Batman 89. But I do have Batman 89 like right underneath it. So, well, pretty close. So Batman Returns, then The Batman, because I really loved the fact that um, they made Batman more of a detective in that movie, which he should be, and that's something that the movies have kind of missed in the past. Batman '89, of course, the original. It's classic. Jack Nicholson as the Joker, Michael Keaton as Batman. It's awesome. Batman Forever, which I love Batman Forever. My boy Val Kilmer as Batman there, which the little Funko Pop there, he's holding the little Riddler clue riddle. Yeah. Val did a great job uh, as Batman, and you know, and I haven't seen the director's cut of the movie yet, but I'm hoping that I get a chance to. Next, I would say Batman versus Superman. Yes, it had its issues. The extended cut is even better than the theatrical one, but I really loved what they were trying to do there, and I thought Ben Affleck as Batman was awesome. He was very much like Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns Batman. Then I'd put the Batman the movie that came out in 1966. That one was kind of a precursor, kind of a launch point for the Adam West TV series, and the movie also starred Adam West and Burt Ward. Very campy, very cheesy, but still kind of fun. Uh, then Batman and Robin, dead last. Yeah, not great. Very cheesy, very over the top. The only reason I go back to watch it anymore is Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze. He's just having so much fun with the character, with all the ice puns and his accent. It's a lot of fun to watch him. Um, but there is one movie that needs to be mentioned because it is amazing. It's not live action, but I feel like it is the best Batman movie ever, and that is Batman Mask of the Phantasm. It has everything people loved about the animated series. Plus, it gave us a whole new chapter of Bruce's journey into becoming Batman. It oh man, it was so well done, so well done. You have a serial killer who's hunting down old mob bosses, and Batman's getting the blame for it. So you got the police going after him, and then at the same time, he has an old love come back into town and causing all this kind of drama. And we get to see what happened in flashbacks to really this pivotal turning point, this kind of crossroads for Batman, for Bruce. He can either get married and have a normal life, or become Batman. And we see what events happened that lead him to that decision of becoming Batman. Um, so it was really well done. Kevin Conroy as Batman, Mark Hamill as Joker. Fantastic. If you haven't watched it, it's on HBO Max. I highly recommend it. So that is all the time we have for today. Sorry, this was kind of a longer one, but I love the character, and yeah, love the character of Batman. He's probably my. I go back and forth. He's in the top two of my favorite superheroes. Him and then Marvel's Wolverine are my top two. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this, and I want to encourage you to try to read some of the comics or watch one of the movies or the TV shows because they're really well done and they have great stories and they're fun. Yeah, go see what all the fuss is about if you haven't already. But until next time, I pray that the Lord Jesus Christ will bless you and keep you. And I just want to remind you all and encourage you to be kind and respectful to one another. And I'll see y'all next time.